do you want me to mentor you? I'm doing a 6-month apprenticeship.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, viral entrepreneur and vlogger Tai Lopez explains how to learn from people's mistakes. Looking back on his life, Lopez feels he has always lived for new experiences. We should look at problems from a different perspective and use new experiences to help formulate new solutions.
When you succeed, you actually grow more. It's new science showing.
We must consider what hasn't worked in the past as well. Lopez firmly believes that we are attracted to wealth, and avoiding that fact is delusional. He describes how we should set small goals and gradually expand those goals over time. Lopez has known people in the past who started aiming way too high.
So don't separate, don't confuse vision. It's a big mistake. One of my business partners now got a PhD in multi-objective optimization, basically how to do lots of things at once. And he told me a couple years ago, he goes, you know what my conclusion is? After 12 years of study, Berkeley, it's all BS. You can only optimize for one thing at a time. So as I look back on my life, I think without knowing it, now I'm a little more clear, I've optimized for like adventure. And so there was a point in my life, I had an okay upbringing, but my dad was in prison when I was born. My mom was married and divorced a few times and a lot of conflict. And at some point in my life, I picked up this book called Amish Society by Hostetler, this professor, and I was fascinated. I was like, these people, these Amish people, have something that no one else in the United States and really the world has. And I was like, I'm gonna try an adventure. So I got on a bus, went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I went to this little town called Bird in Hand. I'll never forget. I got off the bus, walked to this farm, this guy, Daniel Stolzfus, I'd written him a letter and he said, you can come visit me. So I go, and it was instantly like being in a time machine back in the 1800s. I walked in the barn and he was shoveling apple pomace, which is when you make apple juice, you get the byproduct is this little fruit stuff. There's a personality test you can take called Hexaco. It's the most scientific one. And one of it puts you in 25, there's 25 traits in human personality. This is the most updated scientific test. And one of them is openness to new experience and unconventionality. And Dr. David Buss, a mentor of mine, he says it's genetic. So my mom is a super hippie. So I think I became unconventional maybe in the womb. Yeah, I mean, I think that at some point in my life, the most unconventional part has been my education and how I use the education system. So I went through the regular kind of education system, but then I was 18, graduated high school, was gonna go to college, and a guy called me up, a guy named Joel Salatin, and said, do you want me to mentor you? I'm doing a 6-month apprenticeship. He had a farm in Virginia. It's like completely different because I was born in LA. And I said, I wonder if I should do this. And my stepdad, I had kind of a rough childhood, but one piece of good advice my stepdad did, he said, you can always go to college later. You might not get a chance to do a mentorship with this guy. And so I went up there for 6 months. I lived in a little cabin in his backyard. It's a 500-acre farm.
So our brain, especially when it comes to the conversation about money, one of the cognitive biases that really kicks in is either pain avoidance, which is the second most powerful cognitive bias, the scientists say, and then another one is delusion bias. So that's another, it's called pain avoiding. Charlie Munger calls it pain avoiding delusion. So when you bring up the subject of money, people generally go from one extreme to the other. You know, Aristotle talked about the mean, the middle. That's where you find the answer. So I don't know that the world overemphasizes money. I think the world might overemphasize conspicuous consumption, which, you know, the latest research is that money can make you happier. You can buy happiness with money. Daniel Kahneman, Princeton, Nobel Prize winning guys. This isn't pseudoscience saying there's a marginal, reaction in our brain to wealth. So I talk about this kind of pyramid of wealth in the world. You have at the very bottom, Donald Trump debt.
So dopamine is the hormone or the chemical in your brain that is the reward chemical. There's multiple ones, neuroepinephrine, oxytocin, all these. But the way dopamine works is like when you go shopping and you buy cool shoes and you feel good, that's a dopamine release. And dopamine drives us. And what happens is when you fail, your body, they're like little hairs. They're not actually hairs, but we'll pretend they are in your brain. They fall off. You get less of them. And the penalty for having less dopamine receptors is you become less ambitious. When you succeed, you actually actually grow more. It's a new science showing this. So the point being, I'm not a believer in having people fail in their first business. Forget that. Build a small business that you're sure you can pull off. Even Dean Smith, maybe the greatest basketball coach, college coach, him and John Wooden, he said he was never a believer. And I said, so let me get this straight. You're kind of like the dude, there's a lot of stairs in front of you. There's like 20 stairs to the top. And you're gonna do the jump from 1 to 20. You know what happens with people who jump too many steps? You can skip maybe 2 or 3 steps, but one of my school teachers, Randy Thompson, when we were growing up, he tried to jump up some stairs and he was holding books.
Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing for more motivational videos.